Jenny White.
Good morning.
Well, good morning. Happy to be here with the freedom fighter, Jenny White. Yeah.
So I'm sitting here trying to figure out why we're getting it's actually on Rumble this morning. We're getting ads on our Rumble channel.
Good. There you go.
Well, I mean, at some point they'll pay us that $1.25 that we're making.
Yeah. You're officially into the system of internet entrapment.
I think
you're an influencer. You're an influencer now.
I think we were originally, before anybody else was. So yeah, finally we're live on Rumble now. Good morning, everybody on Rumble. Yeah. Good morning, everybody on every place else.
Well, so, hey, did you see? I know Carmen can't be with us today, and we're just going to kind of talk about a lot of stuff, and you can talk about Carmen a little bit if you want. But
behind her back?
No, she's probably watching.
She better be watching.
Did you see that we're putting on $1 trillion in debt every 100 days now in the United States?
Are you surprised?
No, it's getting ready to get out of control. We're in a massive debt spiral. But the point of it is, it took from the inception of this country to about 1982 to accumulate just $1 trillion. Now we're putting on $1 trillion every 100 days. Before too long, let's fast forward just a little bit. We're going to be putting on $1 trillion every 70 days, 60 days, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10 every week, every hour.
So Michael, who do we owe that money to?
Well, the private Federal Reserve Bank that has nothing to do with the United States of America or its people.
You mean we owe that debt to private individuals?
Yeah, isn't it so crazy bank? Isn't it so crazy that there's a bank, a so-called Federal Reserve Bank that's owned by private people who just print money out of thin air to buy our treasuries to give the United States money. I mean, it's so crazy. But anyway,
but they need to finance their wars, and they need to finance, all of the global propaganda that they're using to shove us into a one world government.
Yeah. Well,
is this backwards?
Cool. Yeah, there you go.
Is this backwards?
No. That is one of the best books I have ever read in my life right there.
Okay. I just got my copy. And the reason why I interrupted you is because, and I'm not kidding, that this really happened. So I got my book and I just opened the book, and this is where I opened the book. So let me read you.
Oh, you just opened it. Just like when you just open the Bible and just read. Okay, here's.
Yeah. Just like that. All right. So this is part 4, the American establishment. There are 2 quotes here. I'm going to read the first one. I predict future happiness for Americans if they can preserve the government if they can prevent the government from wasting the labors of the people under the pretense of taking care of them.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was Thomas Jefferson. Now get ready for your second quote. We are grateful to the Washington Post the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected the promises of discretion for almost 40 years.
Yeah, there you go.
It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we hadn't been subject to the bright lights of publicity during those years. But the world is now more sophisticated and prepared to march toward a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national auto-determination practiced in past centuries. David Rockefeller, in an address to a Trilateral Commission meeting in June of 1991. If you want to know who owns you, peeps, this is the book to get. And David Rockefeller, how many times have I mentioned him on this program, loves to tell everybody how much he wants his one world government.
Yeah. Well, and let's just preface that, or kind of reference on Wednesday talking to Julianne about all these agencies, all these committees, all these organizations that aren't elected, that have these people in them that make the rules. They're the ones that dictate what's going on. They're the experts in the Trilateral Commission and the Council on Foreign Relations. I mean, you could go on with a list a mile long with all these organizations that all the same people are a part of, who have input into how our freedom is dictated to us.
And what's worst is these are primarily the great industrialists of our nation who made their money off of the whole premise of free enterprise that ruled our country. So when they made the big bucks, they just basically flipped us the bird and went, now that we own everything because you bought everything from us, we'll just subjugate you like the little ants that you are.
Yeah. Well, and those industrialists now have turned into these massive data companies, you know, and they do the same thing, but it's through censorship and control and surveillance in some capacity.
So I want to tell you something that happened last night. This was very interesting, because interesting things happen to me. Don't you think that's true, Michael? That interesting things just happen to me?
Yeah, very.
So the sweet people at the Enid OK2A invited me to come speak last night. And so Nancy went with me, and we went up to Enid for the meeting, for the OK2A meeting. And that's a great group of people. I love them, by the way. They're just, salt of the earth, sweet people. And I love them dearly. And so last night, I talked about what happened to me with the Oklahoma State Election Board and about being fired from the board. And then the Republican member, Mignon Lamley, bringing to the public that the recommendation that the Secretary of the State Election Board, Paul Zirak, should investigate Cheryl and I, have the AG in the DA's office investigate Cheryl and I. And I brought that up, and there was a lady who was sitting kind of over to my left, and she was nodding like this. And I, because I am who I am, I forgot a couple of things. And she was the one who was like, that's this. And I thought, who is this person? Well, I found out who this person is. This person is Robin Carter, Carder, and I'm going to share my screen with you here in a minute. And she is running for Frank Lucas's seat.
Oh, really?
Yes, sir. She is. And I think I would hope everybody knows that Frank Lucas should have been booted out of the Congress. Well, probably the year after he started. I'm going to say that, the year after he started. He's never been a proponent of individual rights. He's never had, anything. He loves the farmers, but I'm not a big friend of farmers either. The farmers are the ones who are dumping that bio sludge out here in our area and smelling everything up and wrecking the water system. So I'm not a huge proponent of farmers anymore either, because what do we say? about what runs the world today?
Money. Well,
Yeah.
look at the subsidies they've taken for years and years and
Oh, yeah.
years. And I mean, I tell you what, Jenny, not to get off subject, but
But
if
you
people,
are.
well, if people knew how toxic that bio sludge, wastewater, all that is, I mean, it is unbelievable.
Well, and I'm hoping to have one of our neighbors out here who owns a donkey dairy out here. It's the only one in our whole region, let alone the state. And she's a great friend of mine. And I'm hoping to get her to come on and talk about that. But here was the interesting thing about last night. So now I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see what I'm talking about here. All right. So this is Robin Carter's website. See, here she is, Robin Carter, U.S. Congress. So she has this is on her website, her election website. So here she has election integrity and the FBI. And she told this story after I told, Cheryl's and my story about what happened at the state election board. She told a little bit about her story. And then she said, well, I want to talk to you about me running for Congress. So, I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. But I direct you to my Substack for more information. And so I was like, okay. So I went to Robin's website. It's just robincarterforcongress.com. And I went, and inside this, it's somewhere in her website, she has, okay, so let me change the tab. Come on, let me change the tab. Oh, it's not going to let me do it. Okay, I'll try again. Share screen. Okay, so here is Robin Carter's Substack. So this isn't her election website, but this is her Substack. All right. The Gestapo FBI raided my home over a meme.
Oh, wow.
Okay. So if you don't mind, I thought I'd just read. It's not like super long, but I thought I would read this because I think people need to know this, especially in light
Do
of.
you need to read that in your NPR voice just for added effect?
No, because this woman, bless her heart, is a grassroots, individual who, like so many of us, woke up and went, what the heck?
Yeah.
Where am I living? Besides upside down world, where am I living? It's not the United States of America. So I can do that to Robin because she's got, the best interests of all of us at heart. So this is what she wrote. Over the last 20 years, Oklahoma has gone through a transition from being a state with a more Democratic registered voters than Republican. This occurred in 2015. Prior to that, Oklahoma had been dominated by Democrats, and that's true. From statehood in 1907 through 1962, Oklahomans had elected a Democrat governor. And you know what happened in 1962? I was born. It changed the face.
Yeah, it did. It actually did. Changed the landscape of Oklahoma political affairs forever.
Sure did change the life of my poor mother. As recently as 2004, Democrats had a trifecta in the Oklahoma Capitol, meaning Democrats controlled the governorship in both chambers of the Oklahoma legislature. This situation has been reversed since 2011, coinciding with the Obama administration. I credit the common sense of the Oklahoma people for this turnaround. The Kenyan awakened a lot of Oklahomans. And still probably not. And you look at healthcare today, and that's all Obama. That's what Obama did. Knowing all this, I was pretty upset in 2018 when Oklahoma CD05 flipped to a Democratic candidate for the first time since 1974. It didn't make sense to me, but I just chalked it up to the Russiagate garbage we were all subjected to. Still in the back of my head, I wondered what happened. After the 2020 election, I began analyzing the election data in Oklahoma. As a CPA, so I didn't even know that about Robin Carter. Good job, Robin. As a CPA, with my experience dealing with large data files, I was well suited to look at the data and identifying anomalies and trends. The first thing I noticed, ready? was the third-party vote percentages by county. Of the 6 largest counties in the state, 5 reported the same percentage, 2.7%, combined for the several third-party candidates. I began questioning the narrative we were being fed. Did votes get taken from Trump to help make the theft in the other state less obvious? Did the chaos in the swing states prevent more from happening in the deep red states? Were the globalists too busy trying to overcome Trump's dominant performance in the swing states and even deep blue states to finish what they started in Oklahoma? I sent my analysis to my state senator. Now, I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to say this. Because of the fact that we have been scrutinized by the Oklahoma State Election Board and told that we were producing misinformation, I'm going to say this immediately. I am reading a woman's Substack, and what you don't like, if you don't like it, you take it up with her. I am simply reading. Okay? All right. I sent my analysis to my state senator. He forwarded the file to the Oklahoma Election Board Secretary, Paul Xerax, and asked him to explain. His explanation was that the numbers were the same because I rounded the percentages to the nearest tenth. He said this to a CPA. Okay? This came through a CPA. All right, so now, and don't forget, when Paul Xerax answered my letters of complaints, on the first 2 paragraphs, his first sentence was, "It is my understanding."
Yeah.
I didn't realize that people who ran agencies didn't understand what they were doing. But anyway, neither here nor there. While this answer immediately raised my suspicions regarding Oklahoma's election infrastructure and personnel. When dealing in whole numbers, an algorithm has an impossible task of landing on a precise, predetermined outcome. For example, with 100 people voting, it would be impossible to have an outcome of 2.7% because 2.7% is 2.7 voters.
Yeah.
This was prior to Mike Lindell beginning to tell us about Dominion and Smartmatic. And she actually has the election file that she analyzed right here that you can download. After this, I was on a mission to get to the bottom of what happened. I met some other Oklahomans doing similar things as myself within the next 4 to 5 months. And Wendy Montgomery Dial and Robin Carter they know each other from this. We're not an official group. We had no website, no formal membership. We were and are just concerned citizens. By November, but I think that makes you an enemy of the state, doesn't it now?
Yeah, probably.
Isn't concerned citizen now synonymous with an enemy of the state?
Yeah, you're probably on a no-fly list, terrorist watch list if you're a concerned citizen.
Well, I mean, let's find out what happened to Robin, a concerned citizen. By November of 2021, we had gathered lots of different data points and evidence of problems with our elections. One subgroup had begun canvassing, and we were finding ghost or phantom voters in several counties, while another group had done deep dives into the Hart intercivic machines. One of our teammates knew the wife of the Oklahoma Attorney General at the time, John O'Connor. Lucia O'Connor had similar concerns as our group and agreed to help bring Mike Lindell and his team to Oklahoma. On November 11th, 2021, Lindell and his team met with O'Connor in his Oklahoma City office. We picked that day as his office was empty due to the Veterans Day holiday, so as not to publicize the visit. O'Connor had promised to look at the brief Lindell's attorney Kurt Olson was trying to get to the SCOTUS. Olson's efforts were ultimately unsuccessful as no attorneys general were agreed to sign on to the lawsuit. Now, I think we could stop there and I think we could say this. People will now say, well, no attorneys general signed on to that lawsuit. There's something wrong here with what she's saying. Is there? Is there? So are we really in that time? Because Michael, you and I had this conversation just last podcast with Julianne. We have been taught and propagandized to put people on pedestals and to believe that the people that we elected are somehow this perfection of fill in the blank. And we don't, and we get this idea of, well, they're elected, they know more than me, or they're appointed, they know more than me. And we get this idea in our head, and it's simply incompatible with reality and truth. And the people who propagandize us know this. And yet we fall for this stuff all the time. So just because no attorneys general signed on doesn't mean squat. All right. A few months later, February of 2022, 4 members of our group, myself included, met with O'Connor in his Tulsa office. We again laid out our findings and questions to O'Connor, along with the testimony of the subgroup involved in canvassing. O'Connor told us if we could get 50 affidavits from a rural county involving ghost or phantom voters, he could impanel a grand jury. We subsequently did that and more. In March of 2022, Dr. Frank returned to Oklahoma to make presentations across the state. While Dr. Frank was making the presentations, Paul Zirak sent a communication to each of the 77 county election secretaries and forbade them from communicating with Dr. Frank or anyone in our group.
Wow.
I later found out that Xerox also conspired with the Oklahoma IT director to deny any open records requests associated with data files or related inquiries with the excuse the release of the data could lead to terrorism.
Well,
now, just recently there was, and I posted this on our Facebook account, but since we got hacked, very few people are on our new Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment Facebook page, but I just published this recently. There is a national push to create propaganda surrounding elections going into this election that people who question elections are terrorists, domestic terrorists, or other people that have been put in place to undermine elections. So let's think on that. Statements Dr. Frank made after meeting with O'Connor and the head of the private cybersecurity company Oklahoma is contracted with. I was extremely confident we were going to get a grand jury investigation, as O'Connor had promised. Given that we had met the goal of affidavits, coupled with the optimism I gleaned from Dr. Frank's demeanor after his meeting with the cybersecurity folks, I was sure we were going to get some answers. Social media is awash with memes, GIFs, and hashtags, both from both sides of the political spectrum. One of the more popular memes involves a take on the Clintons' seemingly canny ability to know lots of people who die by suicide. Here are some examples by others found via a simple Google search. So here you go. Ha ha ha. We've seen all of these. Okay. So many politicians and prominent people have had similar memes and hashtags posted about them. In the fall of 2020, after revelations contained in Hunter Biden's laptop, Hunter became the subject of many of these. Look at the small sample I found from Twitter about not only Hunter, but many others, including both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. So she's got these listed here. After Dr. Frank's visit, my optimism led me to create a meme using the same didn't kill himself theme, using Xerox's name and picture. I also did the same with the Tulsa County election secretary. I posted both of them to Oklahoma Liberty Watch Telegram channel using my full legal name. The channel owner deleted both memes within seconds of posting. I didn't think much of it. The channel owner screen name Plastic Girl, was very mad that we had excluded her from both Lindell's and Dr. Frank's visit. She removed me from the channel after I posted those memes. I blew it off and went about continuing to research Oklahoma elections. And here I'm going to stop for this. We Republicans don't like to play well with each other. We just don't. Because I'm better than you, Michael. And if you leave me out of something, I'm not going to be your friend anymore.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I'm not only not going to be your friend, I'm going to maybe call you names and tell other people not to follow you because you didn't do what I asked you to do. And you didn't 100% back me. How long have I been in this game?
Since
Long
1962.
time.
Since 1962.
Well, now there you go. I've seen this over and over and over again. I've watched great things come together only for them to go blow up in some giant nuclear explosion because this person didn't like what this person was saying and I don't agree with that. And it's just it truly makes me want to, I mean, vomit. It's horrendous. So here you're going to complain about the country is falling apart, but you can't get along with people. Don't you think that maybe the people that are around you that have similar thoughts, you should be getting along with? And by the way, why is it? And please, if you're a Christian, please don't do this because I will call you out on it. If you're a Christian, you have to have all of the, the kudos for whatever it is that you're dealing with, and somebody comes in and does something, work better than you or with you, and now you're gonna take your ball and go home. Stop it, you big babies. Pull up your big girl panties and get on with your day, and don't care who gets credit. Because while you're playing the I didn't get the credit game, we're losing. I mean,
Yeah.
we've lost the country, but we got to try to get it back. I mean, as long as we have breath, we need to try to get it back. And if you're going to play that little crybaby, I'm going to take my ball and go home game, we're not going to get anywhere. Michael, am I right about this?
Yeah, divide and conquer. We're so divided within our own conservative factions or Republican factions or whatever you want to say.
Just factions.
We're losing.
I mean,
we
have so many. We are. But I'd rather
be any
fight
factions. It should just be freedom. Do you want freedom and liberty, or do you want the government? I mean, that's pretty much how it is. Do you want to just have the government do everything for you, or do you want to take responsibility and do it for yourself?
And I'm not saying everybody is a good person, and I'm not saying everybody has good things at heart. And when you find those things out, you should say, right? And there's no problem with saying, hey, I did that. But if you are going to either usurp other people's work, like Libs of TikTok took over our friend Visit's work. If you're going to do that kind of stuff and not give credit, or if you're going to take over other people's stuff and then just take it over and I mean, no, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
You might even be a psychopath or something.
Well, that's today's time. Today's time is, it's all self-worship, self-accolade, self-promotion, self-consumption.
Hold on, I have to get a selfie of you talking with me.
Yeah.
Well, it just really bothers me. So let's finish. I had to just stop and say that. Okay. Because this is true. I mean, in June of 2022, I was contacted by the FBI to come talk to them. I assumed it was about my involvement in election integrity. I refused to talk to them. I told them I would not talk to them as it appeared that they were in the business of framing people.
Good for her.
On September...
They probably didn't like that.
On September 12th, 2022, my home was raided by the FBI. Several black SUVs were in my driveway and had 15 to 20 FBI agents armed to the max with AR-15s at my door demanding it be opened. My home was being raided over a meme. I sat on my front porch with my husband in our pajamas for over 30 minutes while the armed agents went through every room and closet in my house. This continued for another hour or so while my husband and I were questioned. One of the first questions I was asked was, "Do you watch Fox News?" Later, I was asked, "Are you a Christian?" Does anybody know the Constitution? I'm just curious. Anybody watching this morning who wants to comment on what the
Wow.
Constitution says about that kind of thing? Anybody? I mean, not to say that we follow the Constitution of the United States anymore. I mean, I'll give you that. But what does it actually say?
Wow.
Right? Okay, can you be persecuted for your religion in America? No.
Well, maybe back then Jenny, that was like 200 years ago.
Well, and they are old white guys,
Yeah.
and you're right. And the Constitution is a living, breathing document. And I'm sorry, Michael, you're right.
You can interpret
I'm
that
so
however you
wrong.
want. You can't say that you have religious freedom in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah. When I explained the meaning of the meme, because apparently they asked them about that, one of the agents laughed. He also asked me why I was working on Oklahoma elections, given the fraud in other states, and why I didn't volunteer in those states. He also repeatedly said, "Our politics are very close." So I took that to mean he was a never Trump rhino. During COVID, I had created, and by the way, we want to talk to you about your memes. Okay, so
Where was the news? Where was all the news? Where's all the local news channels live showing all this?
So I think we should just sit on this 1 second. So we do actually have people who are still in jail over walking into the Capitol on January 6th.
Yeah.
These are called political prisoners. And if you think anything differently about that, I really suggest that you pull your head out of the sand, clean the ears from the sand, let that drain out, and then actually do a smidgen of research about what's been going on in the past 30 years or so. Okay? I mean, most of us remember Ruby Ridge. Well, that's probably not true. Probably you and I do. But that was like one of the first shots heard around the world in this new one world government where you can only say what I tell you to say, and you can only say what's approved to be said, and you can only go where you're allowed to go when I allow you to go there. All right, so let's go back to poor Robin Carter's story. During COVID, I had created a poster to put on my front door. It was a picture of the U.S. Constitution and a sign saying, "This is our vaccine passport," with an arrow pointing to the sign. Well, now we know what the matter is with Robin Carter. She's too much like us.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's funny. Okay. With an arrow pointing to the sign. I took it down midsummer of 2022 because it had become faded and worn. At some point between April 2022 and July 2022, the FBI was stalking my home and took a picture of, why am I laughing? That's not funny. And took a picture of the sign. When they were questioning me, they said they did that so they could find my house. I live on 6 acres with very few people around me. Are we to believe the FBI does not use GPS? Here's a picture of the sign in the warrant. The Gestapo FBI refused to give me a copy of the affidavit, so I do not know who the affiant is. So in order to raid somebody's home, they have to have, and I mean, we're finding out that this is, again, it depends on the judge. It depends on the way the wind is blowing, not on the law, not on, what we're supposed to be predicated as justice, but it depends on a lot of different things as to whether or not they issue a warrant to go search a home, because there would have had to have been a warrant for the FBI to do this theoretically under law.
Yeah.
And in order to get the warrant, they had to have an affidavit of, what's the legal term? They had to have an affidavit of this legal term that says that they need to, and then the judge looks at the affidavit and decides whether or not he's going to issue a warrant or not. Okay. So you are in America, you are allowed to know your accuser. Isn't that in the fifth amendment? I believe that's part of the Fifth Amendment, where you are allowed to know who your accuser is. That's Constitution, right? Okay. That's supposed to protect individual American citizens. So you're supposed to be able to go to the FBI or whomever and say, I want a copy of that affidavit because I want to know who did this to me. I want to know who sent you to my house because I posted a meme. Now, I will say, Robin Carter, don't say that stuff on the internet. And anybody else, don't say anything about suicide or murder or with anybody. I mean, don't do it. It's just, you can, it's your First Amendment right, but there's also a difference between what's right and probably what's judicious. I think that's probably a good word, right? Think about stuff before you do it. And if you think it's going to get you in trouble, then probably, unless you're doing something that's true, unless you're saying something, because I got in trouble, right? I got fired, but I was following the law and I was talking about what was in the law. So if you're going to do that and you get your comeuppance, well, that's a huge problem. But don't poke people in the eye and then say, well, it's my First Amendment right. Just don't. It's not wisdom. We can do what we need to do to push back without having to do that kind of stuff. So in that case, I'm sorry, Robin, I don't agree with that, but it was your First Amendment right to do it. And whether they agreed with it or not, it was still your First Amendment right to do it. And I will uphold that and take a bullet for you for that. Okay. All right. The Gestapo FBI refused to give me a copy of the affidavit, so I do not know who the affiant is. I do know there are at least 3 falsehoods in the affidavit that was used to raid my home. First is the lie that I posted the means to Telegram anonymously. Second, that I threatened to kill Joe Biden. And third, that I was engaging in cyber stalking. Whoever the affiant is, they should be scared, as lying to the FBI is a felony. In a proper country, they would have already been arrested. I got an attorney to represent me a month after the raid. He went back and forth with the assistant U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Oklahoma for months. At the end of March 2023, my attorney informed me that the DOJ was going to offer me a deferred prosecution agreement. I was furious. I told him to let them know to go ahead and file charges on me because there was no way in hell I was going to agree to that. A week later, my attorney told me they agreed to drop the case and return my belongings. When I asked my attorney why they changed their minds, he said, I talked them out of it. This is very bizarre. Did defense attorneys normally do that? When the FBI seizes phones, laptops, and other electronic devices, they must get a second search warrant to open them. When I finally got my devices back, 2 phones, 2 laptops, an iPad, and 2 thumb drives, only 1 phone had been removed from the evidence bag. This indicates the judge only gave them the authority to look at the 1 phone. This month, May 2023, I made a trip to the Oklahoma Capitol to meet with my senator and other friendly legislators. After the trip, I wrote a letter requesting help with some open records requests and other issues I uncovered in my research. A few days later, I was informed that I had been banned from entering the Capitol at the behest of Paul Xerox.
Wow.
What is he hiding?
Yeah,
Why
exactly.
is he refusing to turn over the cast vote records from the 2020 election? People with nothing to hide do not act like this, nor do they fire citizens from a board for complaining that law isn't being followed. Governor Stitt must order Attorney General Drummond to appoint a special counsel to get to the bottom of this. I've been unable to get an attorney to represent me in a civil rights lawsuit against the FBI, DOJ, state of Oklahoma, and Tulsa County. I can't even get anyone to call me back. The few I've been able to reach have all hung up on me when I mention election integrity. Next week, I'm making the journey to the Imperial Capital, Washington, D.C., in an attempt to get my story to the Weaponization Committee. Please pray for me if you are comfortable with that.
Wow.
So this was Robin Carter. I'm going to put this up because we've got a bunch of people, more people joining us. So let me put this up again.
Well, just that picture of the FBI with AR-15s drawn, a battle or a battering ram, getting ready to bust in her door over a meme. I mean, wow, what a totalitarian state we live in.
Well, I think that's, you've hit it on the head. I'm absolutely aghast that we're not actually coming to the conclusion to understand, because if something happens to me, peeps, you're going to know. You're going to know what happened. It's because we put this out here.
Wow.
If you live in a society that's ruled by a constitution like ours, and we're supposed to be, and yet this kind of thing happens to people who speak up and try to tell the truth, people who and I mean, if you think that Robin Carter is some kind of idiot about numbers, I would very heartily disagree. A CPA makes their livelihood out of numbers. So if you don't think, well, and honestly, I would hope that even probably seventh graders who've already been introduced to percentages know that you can't get a percentage of a person.
Yeah.
A percentage of a vote. It would have to be round. You don't have 7/10 of a person. So,
well, and
we've had Amber and Terry Evans on, right?
Yeah.
We've had Wendy Montgomery Dial, and what they're doing, what our own state government is doing, is propagandizing people against these people. Well, you don't want to talk to Wendy. She's doing this. You don't want to talk to Amber and Terry because blah, blah, blah. Well, they put out these little whisper campaigns to make you seem like you're, a numbnut and you don't know what you're talking about. And I think the only reason I've gotten away with what I've gotten away with right now is because I've got a name in this state and people know who I am. And should they have done the same thing to me that they did to Robin Carter, there probably would have been way more pushback, because I don't think a lot of people knew who Robin Carter was.
Yeah.
Just like a lot of these people who are just individual citizens who have awakened and gone, what's going on?
And you know what just burdens me to no end is how the government can just come in right into your property because they got a piece of paper that doesn't even have a good trail, to show you how it even originated, and come right in, go through all your stuff, take your phones, take your laptop, take your computers, take your thumb drives. I mean, you want to talk about, that just, and you can't do anything. You say anything, you do anything, it's used against you. You're the bad guy. You can't oppose. You can't defend yourself. You can't defend your property. You want to we are off the reservation in this country with all this stuff, Jenny.
Well, and I think the problem basically is, and those of you who are tuning in and going, you're not Carmen Greider. So I'm really sorry, guys. But let's definitely keep Carmen in our prayers. She's not feeling well, and she wasn't able to come on this morning. So keep her health in your prayers, if you will. And she sent me something, and we'll look at that here in a second. But I wanted to get this out because we have a very important election coming up, and I think that. And again, I'm going to say this. I have the right under the First Amendment to the United States Constitution to opine about anything, including elections, that I wish. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you don't like what I say, you can put your comments in the comment section. Okay? Put them in there. But bringing an FBI team to my home will be looked upon by the people who know what's going on in this state
Yeah.
as totalitarian.
Well, and that's the real crux of it, Jenny, is where there's smoke, there's fire. If there was literally nothing, if there was nothing wrong with the machines, with the voting, with the election system, with the entire process, if there was nothing wrong, they wouldn't sick the attack dogs on someone that's asking questions. And that's what it comes down to. She was simply asking questions. She was trying to get some answers, even through open records requests or whatever the process was. And I mean, you just look at it. If some guy is asking something that has no merit, is just completely making something up, do you even give him the time of day? Do you send out the attack dogs? Do you go to the links that they go to discredit you and do all this stuff? No. So in my opinion, that just proves that there's something going on with Zuriak's. And I think she said in that article herself that he's the one that decided it was going to be 2.7%. Didn't she say that?
No, she said that he said that she had done the math wrong, essentially, is what got back to her, was that she had done the math, because CPAs don't know about math.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, that, as long as we put up with that. And here's another case. This happened. We didn't even know about it. No one knew that even happened. It's just pure intimidation. You're not going to ask questions, and it was probably because of her stature, starting to really get into politics or whatever. She was really starting to make an impact more than anything. So they put the dogs on her.
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, we've got a nice audience this morning. People who are watching, you absolutely have got to share Robin Carter's story.
Oh man, yes.
With as many people as you can, and share my story with as many people as you can. The worst thing that we can do at this point in time is to put on rose-colored glasses and say that everything's going to be fine. I mean, Oklahoma is a red state. We're all good. That's the worst thing that we could possibly do. And that brings up something.
Yeah. Well, and while you're typing that in, just to reiterate, they sick the dogs, the FBI dogs, on a fellow Oklahoman for asking questions and just putting out a meme, for producing a meme and putting it out. They went to her house, took her property, probably under pretty false pretenses, in my opinion. But
well, if she was not able to get the name of her accuser, again, that's against the Constitution. That is constitutional that we know who our accuser is.
Wow, right here in Oklahoma.
So I wanted to point out something. I'm just going to flip this over, screen share my Facebook page. And for those of you who don't know, this is my new Facebook page because I was thrown off of Facebook for getting hacked. So, all right. So this came actually from Janice this morning, our friend Janice Danforth, who's with Moms for Liberty. Sorry, haters. We love Moms for Liberty. Moms for Liberty in Tulsa, in the Tulsa area. And so she wanted to point out, so this was a communication that was sent out the other day by Representatives Marcus McIntyre, Republican Duncan, John Eccles, Republican Oklahoma City, Jeff Boatman, Republican Tulsa, Mike Osborne, Republican Edmond, Mark McBride, Republican Moore, Tammy West, Republican Oklahoma City, Mark Van Kuren, Republican Owasso, Lonnie Sims, Republican Jenks. Did you hear any Democrats? Did you hear any mentioned in that list? Okay. They were all Republicans. All right. And don't forget, Tammy West is our friend who loves community schools, the Marxist community schools. So this is what it said. A group of Oklahoma House representatives today released a statement about the death of Nex Benedict. The Owasso High School student's death was ruled as an overdose, according to the state medical examiner. Benedict died one day after being injured in an altercation inside an Owasso High School bathroom. The tragic suicide of Nex Benedict is a harsh reminder of the power that words have. This is what they are saying. As public officials and policymakers, we have a sacred obligation to ensure that as we do the work of the people, we do so with respect and dignity. Every human life is precious and created in the image of God, regardless of who they are or who they love. We call on all Oklahomans to join us in our commitment to being respectful and deliberate in our language. So it says, the lawmakers reminded the public, look at the bottom, that anyone feeling suicidal or experiencing thoughts of suicide should contact 988 or 911 immediately. LGBTQ youth can also call this number or text START to 678-678 to reach the Trevor Project. Does anybody know what the Trevor Project is?
Bad news.
So the Trevor Project is, here's, this is an article including a video. Let's see if I can. Okay, good. It actually went there. Yay. Thank you, StreamYard. Okay, so this is the Gays Against Groomers. Gosh, it took me a second. This is one of the substacks of Gays Against Groomers. And so they're talking about the Trevor Space. Trevor Space markets itself as a safe space for LGBTQ plus young people to talk about their experiences with identity and peer familial rejection, which sounds like a great idea, but browsing the website for merely a few minutes makes it abundantly clear that what it actually is an online dating service for children and people aged 13 to 24. Now, this is Gays Against Groomers saying this. No website or chat room of this nature should cater to minors, especially one that encourages them to talk to adults. Adults in their 20s regularly talk to teenagers about sexuality and gender transition on Trevor Space. Profiles specify whether the user is over or under 18, but there's no procedure to verify whether the user is answering truthfully. Not only is the website specifically for children and adults, but someone of any age can say that they're a minor and have inappropriate conversations with children. Hello. These were Republican legislators who put this out yesterday. Thank God for Janice Danforth, who pointed that out. And here are the legislators who were the ones that put this out.
Well, and I've always said, Jenny, that entire movement of, identifying whatever ultimately is going to turn into some place where some guy is molesting a child, but it's going to be okay in court because that guy's going to identify as a 14-year-old girl or 14-year-old boy or whatever. So because they identify like that, then now it's, they're around the law. I've always thought that's where this whole thing's going to lead to.
Well, do you not remember MAPS? Remember MAPS, minor attracted persons? We actually had to create an acronym for these people. Yeah. Remember that? And once you create an acronym for these people, then it becomes suddenly magically okay because, well, now there's an acronym for it. And then you've got the American Psychological Association, who's basically okaying all of this stuff because you can't control your mental state.
Well, you got NAMBLA. Don't forget about NAMBLA.
In NAMBLA. Yeah. I mean, how it is that you can have legislators that are so misled as these ones that we just read out loud, who would do something like that is, somebody said, I think it was a recent podcast where we were talking about good intentions, right? And somebody said, well, they're good intention. Well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Good intentions are beyond meaningless into the realm of actually bad stuff.
Yeah, but to play devil's advocate, I mean, do you think they even really know? I mean, you think someone just kind of put that in front of them and said, hey, this is the gist? They didn't even get into Trevor Project or any of that kind of stuff. They just said, hey, this is a good deal. Let's put this press release out or whatever. And, they just didn't even know. They just said, yeah, great, put my name on there.
Well, I think.
And maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe that's what the problem is.
I think, because I was told, I'm responsible for all the content that I put out, right? So how come that doesn't apply to legislators? So immediately you would think they should all band together and say, well, that wasn't what we put in there. We didn't know that's what that was, and send out another press release to something of that effect. Then if that's the case, because otherwise I think everybody has the right to believe that that's what they believe.
Yeah, but they got their own little special book with their own little rules that they get to live life by. My brother, my middle brother is a cop. And I remember when he first came down here and he went through cleat training and all the stuff. And he was always telling me how upset, because my brother is like so straight laced. I mean, he will never lie. He will never fib. He will never do anything that's outside of, his purview of what, is right and wrong in his mind. And he was always so upset because there were so many exceptions to the rules for like legislators, their kids, this, you can't do this, they can get out of this or that, or, whatever. I mean, he was so bothered. And I just always tell him, I was like, man, there's just nothing you can do about it. They make their own laws. They govern themselves outside of us.
Do you not remember the Republican legislator who has now stepped down from Edmond, who, when the cop approached him because he was way over the legal limit in his car, he literally said, do you know who I am?
Yeah.
Because, I'm different than you peons.
Yeah.
I was elected to do the people's business. No, you're not elected. And see, that's the other thing I take exception to in their little press release. They're not elected to do the people's business. I'm sorry. What are they elected to do again? Protect our liberty.
Yeah, but that's cliche, Jenny. That's old. You're talking Constitution. You're talking Ben Franklin and George Washington, and that's too cliche.
Well, and honestly, those people weren't perfect either. And we shouldn't be putting anybody but Jesus up on a pedestal. But certainly what the founders had in mind was not what we have right now.
Yeah. Well, they lived under, they came from a place where there was absolute tyrannical rule from the king and the banking system, and remove the king, and we're still in complete tyrannical rule today. It's gone right back to where it was. It's just not so in your face.
So I was going to see if I could show the thing that Carmen sent me. Oh wow, my goodness.
That's still just mind blowing. I mean, it brings me, whether you believe, want to be on his side or not, or think they were crazy, like it just reminds me of when the FBI went in and killed everybody at the Branch Davidian complex with David Koresh back in the 90s. Remember that when they drove the tank into the house? They
Michael,
threw all the stuff in the house and they just went crazy in there. I mean,
Michael, those people were crazy.
Yeah, they
Those
might have
people
been
were
crazy.
crazy. We had every right to march in there and do that. They were crazy.
Yeah. Well, this country's crazy.
Well, I think we're crazy for listening to what these people say and taking it at face value. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we've been shown over and over again, certainly since the 2022, well, the 2020 even elections. You know, I again, for those of you who are on, what is the book that we recommend?
Killing of Uncle Sam
If you don't want to read this whole thing,
by Pastor
that's
Rodney
fine.
Howard Brown.
Yeah.
And
Put it up again.
who's the co-author?
Paul Williams.
Yeah, Paul Williams.
Paul Williams is a journalist and has been a journalist for many years, and he is the one who worked with Rodney Howard Brown to get that out. But I will say this, and here, because I've read things, out of this or told people about it because I've listened to the whole thing on audio, on Audible. And I've even told my husband stuff, and he's like, come on. And I'm like, there are pages and pages and pages of documents, public documents that this guy uses. He didn't this isn't an opinion piece. This isn't something he just pulled out of the air one day and decided he was going to say. He spent years and years and years researching this, and he has the documents to prove what he's saying. So we can all say, oh, that didn't happen, or, oh, that's too crazy to be believed. But then there are documents that actually prove that it happened. So we've got to get past this America's too big to fail thing, or America is, America, the great, it used to be. We're not there anymore, and we've got to get over that. And we've got to look at what's in front of us. And if you have a citizen of Oklahoma who is being swatted essentially by the FBI because she posted a meme somebody didn't like on the internet, you're fooling yourself. You're fooling yourself. Okay, I tried to get this slide up, and I don't know if this will work or not, because what Carmen was going to show us this morning was she was going to, can you see that?
Well,
is it seeable?
It's not adding.
There you go. Okay. So I'll see if I can't blow it up a little bit and move it. Okay, so this just goes to C. Okay. But what she's looking at is these are active PACs in Oklahoma. And if they're not active, it says not active or terminated or, whatever. So, and how much they spent in, and basically, a little bit about them. And it's interesting that I think I was going to try to move this so that we could see. A lot of these have not, the designated filing agent is NA, not applicable.
Well, you got that up there. I'll be back in 1 second.
Okay. So look at Advanced Freedom, affiliated anesthesiologists, associated anesthesiologists. Oklahoma Ag Fud, Amber Integrated. Amber Integrated is a campaign consultant, is a campaign consultant that has their own PAC. Okay. American Electric Power, American Farmers and Ranchers, American Federation of Teachers, which we already know, Oklahoma City, American Federation of Teachers, Architects PAC, Oklahoma Association of General Contractors, Arts Impact Oklahoma, Association of Oklahoma Nurse Practitioners, AT&T, beer distributors. We've even got people who are beer distributors who have a PAC. So we have so many people, and we've talked about this before. We have so many organizations influencing elections in Oklahoma, and we've talked about dark money groups and all of that kind of thing. But we've got to get to the point where we're willing to stand up and say, look, Oklahoma Ethics Commission, you're going to have to change your rules and regulations so that we actually can make these PACs more accountable to the public so that we know who's funding who and what they might particularly want. And if you haven't seen Carmen's podcast with us from last month, you need to go back and look at that. Don't they, Michael? Because
oh yeah,
that was really quite outstanding. And I think before we get off of here, because we're getting ready to run out of time, but before we do that, I also wanted to bring up a couple of blogs that I just got so irritated the other day and I wrote a couple of blogs that I want to talk about. So let's click on this one right now. And this one is, we have the right as individuals to give away as much of our own money as we please in charity. But as members of Congress, we have no right to appropriate a dollar of the public money. And I point out here, while working to thwart a bill to move school board elections to November, Republicans have been giving away lots of your tax dollars. So you might go to the blog, it's rope2.org. You might go and look. And I want everybody to read a monograph that was written by Davy Crockett in 1867 called Not Yours to Give. And Not Yours to Give it's great. It talks about how they had a bill in Congress while he was there to have Congress appropriate money to the widow of a naval officer who had died. And basically Crockett goes out and was talking to people about this, and he goes to a farmer, and the farmer was like, you can't do that. You have no right to do that. Whether or not they've been in the military or not, that's a private organization. Like Gary Sinise, for example, he's got a great organization that's a private organization that cares for veterans. That's what we should be doing, not having the state do that, not having the federal government do that. That's that kind of a job. So here's what I did. I talked first about Jessica Garvin's bill, remember, to provide public money for tampons. We talked about that. And by the way, did you know that that's a national thing? It's called period poverty. And this national group is trying to get stupid legislators who don't know their rear from a hole in the ground to pass laws to socialize the use of menstrual products.
Well, it sounds like Tampax and some of these big companies that make all these products got a pretty good lobby, pretty good way to increase sales, Jenny, is what it looks like to me.
So, and I'll show a couple of these. The bottom line here is more the state funds, the bigger it gets and the less liberty and money we have as citizens to control our own lives. That's why Republicans ostensibly are against in growing government. For this particular reason, it gets bigger, we get tinier. And you have the FBI raiding citizens for posting a meme to the internet. So this Greg Tree passes the National Memorial Education Bill so that we're now going to provide $1.5 million to support educational programs and initiatives that raise awareness about the Oklahoma City bombing. Isn't there a private foundation for the Oklahoma City Memorial? The answer is yes. Why aren't they funding this? Why are we taxpayers funding that? So let's go. Representative Griego, passes a bill to help restore prison rodeo. The prison rodeo. $8.3 million to be put into a fund to be used for complete revitalization of the prison rodeo grounds in McAllister. Is that government? Is that government's job?
Yeah, I think so.
It is?
Yeah.
To socialize prison rodeos?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to disagree with you there. First time we've had a disagreement on this show. I'm just going to tell you no, it's not. Push the no button. Okay, bill setting up revolving fund for rare brain cancer passes. So this is a bill that seeks to establish a grant that can receive public and private dollars to be used by Oklahoma universities to conduct research that leads to a cure for this particular kind of glioma or brain tumor. I'm sorry that people get these things. I'm sorry that people get cancer. Guess what? I had cancer. I had cancer. I had to be treated for it. I didn't get public funds for research for that. I think private research funds are going into that particular cancer. I had cervical cancer. There's a lot of private funds for that. My son has type 1 diabetes. Should I go lobby the Capitol to make sure that we get public funds, state funds going into diabetes research for type 1 diabetes because my son has diabetes?
Yeah, government should pay for that, Jenny.
So this is the kind of stuff that is absolutely ludicrous, and it makes government bigger every single day, but yet they get away with it because what they do is they say things like, well, we need to have the prisoners need to be this, or the prisoners need, and this poor kid died of this, and it has this. And I'm sorry for all those things, but that doesn't make it appropriate for government to fund it. And I'm sick of this whole let's turn on the waterworks and say how we need the government to do things for private citizens. No, neither for business.
That's too much common sense, Jenny. I mean, the government is for the people, by the people, so they should just spend the people's money on all this stuff for the people. That's the rationale.
Well, I wish I wasn't laughing, but
and if they want to break in your door because you posted a meme that hurt somebody's feelings, then the people said that's okay. I don't know, the whole thing. It's all, you've said it a million times. I've said it a million times. It's personal responsibility, and the government, if you think about it in terms of business, you've always heard the term of business. If you're not growing, you're dying. If you're not expanding, increasing your sales, increasing your output, increasing your viewership, whatever it is, then you're starting to go the other way. Well, the government they know that. So if they don't continue to expand, then they will contract, and they're not going to allow that to happen because that's just not in the cards.
Well, it's like that discussion I had with Gary Bands where he told me that people elected him to go up there and make laws. During that same conversation, he basically said, well, we have to do something to justify our reason for sitting in these chairs. And his idea for justification of sitting in the chair was passing more laws.
Yeah. How about go up there and repeal about 1,000 laws? How about that?
So I don't know, people, we are in grave times here. And if you don't think that's true, and if you didn't tune in for the whole show, and I totally get it, it's tough on a Friday morning.
Yeah.
Go back and watch the beginning of this because you missed
I can tell you, Jenny, I am completely offended by the FBI going into her house, taking her stuff. I mean, you want to talk about just incensed. I mean, that is absolutely ridiculous, and that is just complete bully. You want to talk about a bully? You want to talk about just scare tactics?
It's tyranny.
Yeah, that is tyranny. That's the definition of tyranny right there. What happened to her?
Who wasn't it? Jefferson, who talked about watering the tree of liberty with the blood of tyrants.
Yeah.
I don't want it to get to blood spilling, but people, you have got to wake up, and you have got to wake up your neighbors, because if you can't understand where we are, people excuse the J6 stuff and they go, well, that was Washington, D.C. We know that they're all corrupt and blah, blah, blah. People, this happened. This woman was swatted in Oklahoma over a meme about elections.
Yeah. Well, it's what we've evolved to now, Jenny, in this country is that threat of force. Okay. They can come into your house. They can take your property. They can put you in jail. They can, they can take you off the internet, whatever. That threat of force now is what is used on everybody.
Well, and the worst part about it is, like Robin was saying in her Substack article, and she did say last night she does have an attorney now. So she hasn't updated her Substack article, and she does have an attorney, but that's the other problem. We don't even have attorneys who understand the Constitution well enough to agree to defend people who have been hurt by their own government.
Yeah.
We're losing justice. I mean, justice is draining out of this country and of this state like sand out of an hourglass,
Yeah.
daily, hourly, minute by minute. And we're not understanding this, because if you don't even have an attorney you can go to say, hey, I was aggrieved by the state stepped on my Fifth Amendment and First Amendment constitutional rights by doing fill in the blank, by swatting me because I put a meme on the internet about elections. How are you going to be defended?
Yeah.
How does anything get better?
But that's been part of the plan. I mean, even, go back to our podcast with Julianne, to where you go back, rewind 100 years to where you have these huge industrialists, these major organizations, kind of NGO type of people who identified, within the education system, they want to change how people have been educated on purpose, to disarm us, to disempower us. So, we don't have those critical thinkers that were in this country, 100 years ago, 150 years ago, 200 years ago, 250 years ago. It's so few and far between. And I think most of us have just seen some type of tyranny enough to say, hey, that's not right. Just as you're in your core of who you are, not because we're so well versed in the Constitution and this, that. I think like regular people, outside of you, because you've been involved in this for a long time, Jenny, but I think a lot of regular people now are just literally just saying, hey, something just doesn't seem right in some way. And I think that's where we're getting more grassroots involvement, more people, kind of waking up a little bit. But I still think no one really understands the true scope of government. In its real job is just to protect our liberty, period. They're not there to write all these laws, do all this stuff, have a million bases all over the world, and just inflict pain everywhere they go.
Well, the only way to stop and push back against what's going on is to continue to do what we're doing. And, I may have been fired, but I'm still going to stand up for the law. Everybody needs to do that. You need to stand up for yourself. You need to, like, for example, every time I go to the tag agency and I just had to get my driver's license updated. And I know they don't mean to, but they push the real ID. Well, you probably should get a real ID. I'm not getting a real ID. I'm not going to do it. It's not as though it's bad enough. Do you realize that on the back of your driver's license, you have a barcode? You have been barcoded, people. Do you know that when you actually go to, and this I noticed some time ago and it really frightened me, and I'm not sure what to do about it. But if you take your driver's license and you go at a grocery store to buy beer and they look at your driver's license, they literally swipe the PC card on the, they literally swipe your driver's license and the UPC code on the back on their UPC scanners. Have you noticed that?
I don't drink alcohol.
Well, I have to have my beer.
I don't buy alcohol.
I'm sorry. I'm not going to drive around with one, but when I'm in my home, I'm going to have my beer. That it bothers me because I think that's just another way of collecting data on people. Well, that Jenny
Yeah.
Light, she has beer, or I mean, it's
Well, it'll lead to a way to track your carbon footprint, to tax you because you're creating this amount of carbon and all. It's an end all system of total control. If they can start getting used to tracking every single item, or if you can start getting used to them tracking every single thing, every item you buy, every place you go. Well, you saw, Jenny, I'm sure you saw that there was a recent article where the car manufacturers are selling your driving data to insurance companies.
I
Okay?
did see that.
There
I
you
did
go.
see that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and
So
think
you're
about
being
this.
tracked. You buy a new car. You're not signed up on all this stuff. Your car company is tracking you, and they're
Anyway.
selling your data. And that's
Yeah.
just because it got exposed. I mean, think of everything. Think of your phone. Think of your TV. Think of your toaster. Your smart toaster that's hooked up to the internet. Whatever.
Your
All
refrigerator. I
every
mean, people
single one of
literally,
those things. Yeah, they're
yeah.
all tracking you.
Yeah. And I was going to say something and I lost my train of thought, but there was it was about, oh yeah. So think about cash for clunkers.
Yeah.
So what did that do? What did
Got
cash for clunkers do?
got rid of all those stealthy, non-trackable analog cars.
And now what do we have?
Well, you got a car that you can't even work on anymore.
You have a car that you can't work on and you have a car that tracks your every move.
Yeah.
Well, Michael, we have
welcome to
got to
America.
do what?
Welcome to America, land of the free, home of the brave. Except don't post a meme.
Well, and specifically don't post a meme about election integrity
Yeah.
in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Or you might be considered a domestic terrorist. And I do want to point this out. So when I was in training for my seat on the Oklahoma County Election Board, we were given during our training, and I still have it, a packet about that thick of full color. So it was full color, right? Printed at the taxpayer expense in full color, a packet of so-called misinformation that they had been tracking about elections.
Information. Oh,
Yes.
talk about
And
indoctrination.
I'm pretty sure Robin Carter's meme was in like on the front page there because I remember saying, "Oh, that was probably not, the I don't know that I would have posted that one." But still in all, I mean, so they've been going to people's, and I'm sure they're doing it to us too, going to people's sites and screenshotting what's on there and then keeping it in their little database of,
Yeah.
Oklahoma election misinformation. And so that they can train people. Is training propaganda? Well, it sure can be.
Yeah. Well, just think that's some government employee that's paid by the people of this state to go inform on all the other people to keep track of all this stuff. There's someone hired at the state to do that.
Well, it's about time for us to get off of here. We're a little late anyway, but thank everybody for joining us. I really appreciate that. And I'm really sorry that Carmen wasn't able to be on. Keep her in your prayers for good health. I ask you to look up Robin Carter for Congress.com.
Yeah.
She's running against Frank Lucas. I do hope to have her on our show at some point so she can talk about this and her. There is another person actually running against Frank Lucas as well, but this is another one of these guys that have got to get out of Congress. They've got to get out of there, but yet people are just completely uninformed about his voting record. And Robin has quite a few of his votes up there. So you need to go check that out and tell other people that she's running.
And they're may, Jenny, they're just may, and I'm using may in air quotes just in case. There may be a little bit of election interference, just maybe. I won't post a meme about it because I don't want the FBI coming to my house yet. I mean, they probably will at some point.
Well, I do believe that if we continue to speak out, that something's going to happen,
Yeah.
and
Well, and I will say, I don't have a problem with that meme. I mean, I say go as crazy on them as you can. Sometimes, you have, maybe a little more. I won't even use the word integrity is maybe not the right word. That's not the
no, I
right
don't
word.
think it's that at
You
all.
you would say, hey, maybe that's a little too,
Over the
whatever.
line.
Yeah, over the
It's
line.
a
I
little
say
toe
go
over
over
the
the line. I
line
say
for
go
me.
way over the line. I say we need to shame them. We need to make them look as stupid. We need to make them look as bad as they really are. I say go all the way. Make the memes as offensive as possible because they're winning. What we've been doing so far,
Yeah.
playing nice guy,
Yeah.
they're winning because we're too nice, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Well, and I'm not saying that. I just don't think you want to threaten people's lives. I think that's the toe over the line for me, and you don't want to intimate that because, again, that's the toe over the. But I don't care. I mean, we talked about this on the last podcast with Julianne and others. We've got to start calling these people out for who they are, like those representatives who put out this well-meaning, press release about next Benedict, who then calls into the Trevor Project.
Trevor Project.
I mean, this is just beyond nuts, and it simply has to stop. So, all right, well, Michael, it's always lovely to talk to you, and you and I could create our own podcast every day where we just talk about the amount of nonsense that's going on in Oklahoma.
Jeez.
We'd have plenty of fodder for that.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I know. So thank you again, everybody, for being with us today, for Michael and I. And also, too, don't forget, down at the bottom, Rope Report Live, donate at rope2.org/donate. Please, if you are able to do so, would you please consider doing that? We're putting our 990 together as we speak. And we are considered a not-for-profit organization, but we are not going to file any kind of federal paperwork. We're just going to turn in a 990 to the IRS at the end of every year so that you guys who donate can make sure that we're spending our money appropriately. You always have the opportunity to email Nancy at rope2.org. She's our treasurer, and she'll give you any information that you want to have. So we're very open about it. My address is the address that we use to operate Reclaim Oklahoma Parent Empowerment. We have nothing to hide, and we're happy to give you anything that you would like to see, if that would, help you. Have a great weekend. Michael, anything on tap for this weekend?
No. Well, I'll be in Dallas again. I was in Dallas
okay.
last weekend. I'll be in Dallas again this weekend.
Okay.
We got all these kids. We got all these
Soccer.
tournaments everywhere, sports, this, that.
Yeah. So we're working on the farm.
Dang.
I know. That's farm work every weekend. All right, everybody, have a great weekend. We will see you again on next Wednesday. And I can tell you who's going to be on with us next weekend. Oh, our friend Visit is going to be on next Wednesday, and you don't want to miss that for sure. So make sure you're with us on next Wednesday. Next Friday, we have a person that you will like to meet who has created an organization in the Tulsa area surrounding the desire to make public schools more accountable. So we will talk to him, Ken Seidler, on Friday. And otherwise, we are happy that you tuned in, and we'll see you again next Wednesday. Have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah. Thanks everybody.